HannaTalk. What is up, Dragon Ball fans? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. And today I'm here with a very special guest. Now, he is an actor who's been best known to fans as the voice of Adult Goten from Dragon Ball Z, particularly having made his return to Dragon Ball Super Superhero and the Kakarot video game back in 2020. But he's also been best known in shows such as One Piece, Attack on Titan, Yu Yu Hakusho, Fairy Tail, Black Clover, Buddy Daddies, as well as being the host and now producer of Good Morning Texas, and so much more. Please welcome back to HannaTalk, the amazing Robert McCollum.
Greetings. Hello, everybody, and hello, Simon. It's good to talk to you again.
It is absolutely an honor to have you back as well, Robert.
I'm going to clean up one thing. I am a former host and producer of Good Morning Texas. I no longer have that job, and I'm very happy that I no longer have that job. So I don't have to get up that early in the morning and do things anymore, which is great.
But no, that's fantastic though, and I did look up about that just beforehand, which we'll actually get into talking about that a little bit, because that was quite a bit of a surprise to me when I first discovered that. With having been the host of Good Morning Texas, and of course having been a producer around that time, when you think back to like any of the behind the scenes work involved in Good Morning Texas on a daily basis, has there been any stories or any sort of things as a producer that really stood out to you that were like, oh my God, I can't believe we did this?
Well, there definitely are a couple things. So I should explain to people that don't know. In the tradition of the American morning show, the Good Morning America type thing, Good Morning Texas was Dallas's version of that. And so it was on like after the news and before Good Morning America, and it was this little shot of not really news, but also trying to sell segments and also trying to entertain people. So it's kind of like throw everything up against the wall that you could to make people watch through the paid segments about bariatric surgery or heat-resistant siding or whatever else that people had bought their segments for. So it was kind of this faux journalism that feels like another universe now. It feels like a fever dream that I ever did that all those years ago. But I did manage to get some fun things out of it. I got to meet Anthony Daniels, C-3PO, which was amazing. And I had my mom ship my life-size cardboard C-3PO cutout all the way from Arkansas, and he signed it live on air, and that was definitely a peak nerd moment for me. Got to meet Jackie Chan, and then I guess my biggest coup was Eddie Izzard came through, a brilliant comedian, Eddie Izzard, who I would assume people in Australia know as well as they do in the UK, but in the US, a lot of people had no idea who he was. Even the other runners of the show were like, who is this? Why do you care? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Trust me, I'm having him on the show. And then thought there'd be no way he would actually come and get up in the morning and come do this, because he only was doing one night in Dallas. But he came, and I got to meet him, and it was definitely a peak moment.
Wow, that is incredible. That's absolutely fantastic. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned about Anthony Daniels, because of the fact that he is I think he's coming to Australia for Supernova, or is one of the guests that's coming to Australia for Supernova, which was quite a bit of a surprise. So to hear you talk about like getting Anthony Daniels onto Good Morning Texas at that time was that is incredible. That is absolutely amazing. And also getting the other guests that you've had on the show as well. And actually, like, hearing the story that you were talking about with Good Morning Texas, very similar or exactly the same as like the morning shows that we have here in Australia, with obviously our version of the Today Show, which we've got in Australia, and Sunrise, which is another version of that, which we have in Australia and stuff, which is just fantastic. So it works exactly the same as like Good Morning Texas and stuff. But that's pretty incredible.
Lots of over-caffeinated people smiling and reading off teleprompters.
Yeah, well, having your coffee in the morning does help, so yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, that's absolutely fantastic. And
Speaking of time zones, we should probably tell people that you are having your morning coffee, because it's like very early o'clock in Australia right now and late afternoon in Dallas, Texas, where I am. I'm actually speaking to you right now live from the mothership at Crunchyroll, the sound studio where we do most of the dubbing for anime. And I just had a session earlier, so I just decided to duck into a conference room and do this call right now. So there's every chance that I may be thrown out at a moment's notice because I am in no way official and allowed to be in here. But so far, nobody seems to care.
But no, that's fantastic. And yes, everyone out there that's been knowing or has known about all the interviews that I've done over the last 9 years, yep, time zones between different countries. So very early in the morning, very late afternoon or evening for the people I'm talking to. But hey, it works, and thank God for technology. But no, that's fantastic though. And with looking back on your time at Good Morning Texas and stuff, were there any particular like things as a producer that you really wanted to do, like on the show that you never really got the chance to do? Like if you were to go back and do Good Morning Texas all over again from a producing standpoint, were there any things particularly on the bucket list that you really wanted to tick off?
Well, I wanted to do a whole lot of live out and about in the world, what we call packages, where you go and take a camera crew and shoot it and edit it and put it together and then play it on the show. And they had such a low budget, and they were always having to beg editors from the news department. So we almost never got to do the live things. But like even just the experience of an anime con, I think there's, as huge as anime is now and as big as the conventions are, there's still a whole segment of the world that does not understand what that is or what that means. And I would have loved and would still love to go and take a camera crew through a con and explain what the autographs are and explain what cosplay is and explain what the gaming tables are set up for, and kind of exploring that world I think would be super cool. And also just getting out and talking to real people about what they do. They have a mule jumping competition that I didn't even know was a thing. And I would love to go do like a deep fake sports profile on a championship jumping mule, just because I think that would like detailed interviews about their training regimen, all with the mule. Those are the kind of things I suggested, which is probably the reason why I am not still working in television.
But wow, no, that would have been amazing actually, especially because of your work in voice acting, and especially having been involved in having been involved in Comic Cons from a guest perspective, but also having that deep understanding for how Comic Cons work and stuff from the amount of time you've attended cons over the last few years. And even if it's not done on Good Morning Texas, there is the other option, which is YouTube. Just start a YouTube channel.
Just set it up and put it on YouTube. That's true.
And especially because, like, going into the Dragon Ball side of things, you've got Elise Bauman, who most people remember as Pan from Dragon Ball GT, who does anime adventures, in which she gets to talk about, like interview a whole bunch of guests around different Comic-Cons, particularly in America. So there's an option right there. So just do the similar sort of thing.
Yeah, she's great. I've been a guest of hers before on her show, and she goes to the conventions and really uses it as a platform to talk to people and explain how conventions work and show behind the scenes stuff. It's a tremendous amount of work that she puts into that, which is probably why I don't do it, but I'm very proud of her for doing it. She's one of my friends from a long time ago. That's why I love GT. First of all, I love that Dragon Ball GT still gets some love and is starting to get more love again. Like, they've just come out with a whole series of Funko Pops for Dragon Ball GT. So Team Goten finally has his own pop, which is exciting. And I felt like it was the redheaded stepchild of Dragon Ball for years that everyone ignored. And I'm like, I love that Pan gets her own hero storyline in that. And I think it's underrated, and I'm glad that it's starting to get some love. People are coming back around to GT.
Absolutely. Which, speaking, of course, a little bit further on that, with, of course, a huge congratulations on Dragon Ball Super Superhero in coming back into the role of Goten, especially having played the character in Dragon Ball GT, but also having made your return to the Kakarot video game back in 2020. What was it like? What was your reaction to coming back into the Dragon Ball anime side of things versus like Kakarot, which is a video game story?
It was great fun, and also getting to do the team up with Trunks and do Go Trunks in the last movie and in the video game. We did that, and it's like Eric Vale and I have played those characters for I think 15 years now. That since we first started doing that, and so there's a scene in the most recent movie where they're trying to do Go Trunks and mess it up and turn into like a fat blobby version of themselves because they didn't do it right. And I'm like, oh, this is like me and Eric. We haven't done. They're like, how does he do this? I don't remember how we do this. And that was exactly what the characters were saying, and also what we, the actors, were saying. I'm like, how did we do? Did you go first and I copy you? How do we do this? So it was great. It was great to get to come to back in the universe and be a playable character. Also got to replay a character, a monster called Herudegarn, that was actually in the Wrath of the Dragon movie, Dragon Ball Z Wrath of the Dragon, and Herudegarn was this massive monster. And they brought it back as one of the playable characters in the video game. One of the games, I can't remember if it was the mobile game or that game, but it was so long ago, there was no audio reference file. They had no digital file of that character at all. And we even looked on YouTube to try to find, we couldn't find anything, because that was back in the days of tape to tape, 3/4 inch tape, if you can believe it, in the late 90s. And there was no digital file or record of that. So they're like, well, just kind of guess what you probably did, because we're going to pitch shift it down and make it all echoey anyway. So I just went in and growled for a whole bunch of times. But if it sounds slightly different than the original because you have a VHS of the original, then please message me on Instagram and tell me what it's supposed to sound like.
But no, that's fantastic though. But one of the things that was a really big highlight to me with the Kakarot series was that it got to focus a lot on characters that were not given enough attention in the original series, but especially bringing back a lot of deep cut characters and storylines that was far back as the original series that people had not seen in years since Dragon Ball Z, whether it was bringing back Upa in the Kakarot games, whether it was giving Chi-Chi a much bigger moment in the game versus like what she gets in the series. But from having worked in the Dragon Ball universe for so long, why do you think that it took them this long to finally give a storyline to a lot of the characters that are not Goku and Vegeta? Why do you think it took them this long to do that?
Well, I think in the early days, it was a lot of just the fan love was for the lead characters, and they, again, that's one of the oldest, like One Piece, some of these long running games, and they very much come from the mindset of like, this is our heroes and our leads are the key to the story, and that's where we're going to give our focus. But I think now that the audience is matured, and people that grew up with Dragon Ball still like it and still watch it, but they're adults now, and they're like, no, we like universe building, we like broad stories, just like and certainly I don't have the rights to mention, but I can talk about like Star Wars and doing things like the Andor series that was a spin-off in the same world, in the same universe, but unrelated to any character you've ever seen. I think people are just starting to realize like, oh, there's a value in broadening the universe now. There is a hunger for this broader universe. And so I don't know if that is just a savviness on their part to realize that was new, or maybe that's been there all along and they're just now coming to realize it. But I think it's really cool. I love that and it's also great because, actors get cast, both the original Japanese actors and the American dub, the English dub actors, and they might have gotten cast 15 years ago for a small part that only had a couple of days in, and they never thought about it again. And all of a sudden they may not even still be in voice acting, and they get a call and say, hey, do you want to come reprise this role? Which I just think is great. I mean, it's the residuals that nobody in the anime world got years and years ago. And who knows, it might allow them to go to get invited to a convention and get to go see some of the fans who like their work, which is always the coolest thing as an actor, is to get to talk to people and hear feedback about what they liked about your performance or just the show in general, the property. And so the fact that more people are maybe going to get invited because of this broadening world, I think is super cool.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely true in that regard. And I think for them to finally address the fact, in not just from the fans' perspective, but even the actors themselves have talked about saying, even Carl Hubert, who of course played Gohan, the adult version of Gohan since Dragon Ball Z, has spoken about how much he really wanted to kind of put the spotlight on Gohan in particular in the Dragon Ball universe because of how much he was thrown to the sidelines in favor of Goku and stuff. Because it originally started with the idea of having Gohan being the main lead after Goku was taken out during the Cell games, but everyone was not a huge fan of that. And so that's when they brought Goku back into the mix, and that's when he was thrown to the sideline. But to see him get his spotlight in Dragon Ball Superhero in particular, not just him, but also Piccolo and a lot of the other characters that have been completely pushed to the sideline has been fantastic, though. And regardless of how people feel about like Dragon Ball as a franchise as a whole, in terms of the quality and stuff and how consistent it has been from start to finish, especially with Dragon Ball Super and stuff, I feel like there is no denying the world has been, it's been one of the most important anime in animation, not just in anime history, but in pop culture history, which if it hadn't been for Dragon Ball, One Piece definitely would never have happened, of course, and we never would have had
any... totally agree.
Absolutely.
So, Oda's even said that in interviews that's Dragon Ball was what made him want to become an animator and a manga writer in the first place. So that I have a conspiracy theory that is not true and not based on any real information, but I spread it wherever possible. That when One Piece finally ends, 25 or 6 years after it began, whenever he finishes it up, and they finally find the final One Piece and reveal what it is, it will in fact be the first Dragon Ball, and the universes were connected.
Well, hey.
Not canon, not true, but I really like that idea.
Well, hey, there've been a lot of crossovers happening within the Dragon Ball One Piece universe, so it'd be a bit of a twist to say, hey, the One Piece is the first Dragon Ball series. That would be pretty cool, actually, and a bit of a twist in the series as well, because everyone's constantly asking the question, what is the One Piece? And then the reveal is going to happen and say, it's the first Dragon Ball series.
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
That would be pretty amazing, and it would be so in the style of like One Piece, where you're expecting one thing, and then something else just completely turns up that you did not see coming. That would be pretty amazing. Which, speaking of course a little bit further on Dragon Ball, which this year of course marking the passing of Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama. Did you ever get the chance to meet like Toriyama, and what were your memories of him, like if you've ever had any interactions with him?
I have not been fortunate enough to do that. I know a few of the people at Crunchyroll and back at Funimation before that did get a chance to meet, and they came over and toured Funimation at one point in time. I was not a part of that, but not a large enough character to rate that back in the day, but that is fine. But it was amazing, and also just strange that this one company, Funimation, came here and specifically came to Texas because it was a right to work state and because they could find a lot of voiceover talent to work. And Dragon Ball was their first and main title. And that kind of brought anime to America. And like you said, it was foundational. All of these other shows that are huge in Japan never would have had their breakthrough in the United States if Dragon Ball had not come and become what it was. And also put Funimation on the map and made Texas a hub for the English dub anime world that it became because Dragon Ball led the way. So for all of our careers that came out of here, it was huge, but also just for bringing anime to the United States, it was a huge vehicle. And in the early days, that's all the anime anyone knew. When I said I did voices for anime, and people were like, I don't understand, what does that mean? And I'm like, do you know Dragon Ball? Do you know Dragon Ball Z? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But back then, that was all their window to the world was. Now, you can walk through Times Square in New York and see a 2-story screen for the finale of Attack on Titan. And there were, in the London Underground, there are giant posters there, advertisements for Spy Family or Chainsaw Man. Like, it is fully mainstream now as a cultural phenomenon. You don't have to explain to anyone what anime is. Nobody under the age of 30 needs to be explained what anime is. It's just a given that they know what it is and have watched some part of it. And it really is the legacy of Dragon Ball and the power of those stories. I mean, you look at how much people are connected to those characters, and as simple as the artwork was, and as basic as some of the early storylines were, he just knows how to build story that is not, as much as it's a lot of action and fighting and all the things that people sometimes knock it for. It's like, yeah, but you care about these people. You care about these people in a way that sustains longer than so many other things. other movies, other TV shows, like people's connection to these characters is phenomenal, and that just, I think, comes down to great storytelling, and he's been a master storyteller for his entire career. So I think it is appropriate that he is lauded in the way that he is, and he will be missed as a huge loss to the community. But what he did for expanding this universe beyond Japan and to the rest of the world is kind of phenomenal.
Absolutely. No, that is absolutely fantastic. And I think that's definitely true in that regard, in that it helped bring anime to a much global sensation, and not just bring it just to, of course, like one location in that, but as you said, as we spoke about before, like influential in a lot of other anime that have become inspired by Dragon Ball in particular. So it's just fantastic. And speaking about, of course, with Attack on Titan, you of course start in the final season of Attack on Titan, in which I think is split up into 4 parts, I believe.
Yes. They
Yes,
teased us forever, dribbling it out in small bits and chunks. So both the fans and all of us performers were dying to finally see where it was going to go.
absolutely. But what was your reaction to getting to come back into Attack on Titan, especially getting to do the final season, having played in that universe for so long?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a 10-year journey to get those 4 seasons out. I hadn't realized that until we were starting to do some press for the finale, and realized, like, oh yeah, it's been 10 years that we've been on this journey. Um, but it was an incredible story, and a huge phenomenon where Dragon Ball and those kind of shows are kind of a slow burn that grow over time. Um, Attack on Titan was huge and massive from the moment it came out, and you knew as a performer you were part of a cultural moment. You know, it was a cultural experience. This was happening globally right now. Um, I don't want to spoil things for people that haven't watched it, but there's a very significant reveal involving my character that is done in a surprising and unexpected way. And within 10 minutes of that airing for the first time, there were thousands of videos of people who had filmed their friend watching that moment and reacting to it, and reacts to the Reiner reveal. And so that was like, oh, this is a cultural moment that I've gotten to be a part of. This is a phenomenon that I've gotten to go on the ride of. And never thought this character, again, I don't read the manga ahead of time. My directors, usually most of them, are pretty adamant about having us, the voice actors, not do that, and I try to follow that instruction, because there's so much information out there, and you can read the manga and find out exactly what's going to happen, but if you know ahead of time as an actor, you don't react in the same way to things. If you think your character is dying or about to die, and you have 30 more episodes, then you don't really believe that you're going to die. So I tried not to read ahead and know and avoid Wikipedia and Twitter and the things that would spoil it for me. So I didn't know how big a role Reiner was going to play in the final chapters, and was super excited to get to find out that he had been elevated into that integral character. And it was also really nice. So Bryce Papenbrook, who plays Aaron, and Trina Nishimura, who plays Mikasa, we all three have gotten to know each other really well over the course of this journey. Trina and I have known each other for years and years and years before that, but we all agreed not to watch the whole finale, only to watch our scenes that we were recording, and not watch the rest of it until we were all together and it was finally mixed and all the voices were in and the music was all in and everything. So I didn't know how the story ended. Even after recording my scenes and my battle pieces of the final episode, I didn't know anything that was happening with their end of the story. And so we all three watched it together on my phone at midnight when it went live on Crunchyroll, outside of a closed restaurant in San Antonio, Texas, sitting on the patio, watching it on my phone and just sobbing at their performances. And they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you." And it was the perfect way to end that kind of epic journey that we all had gotten to be on. And of course, we'll continue to work together and see each other at panels, because that's the nice thing about anime. It never dies. As Dragon Ball shows us, you can get invited to panels for things you did 20 years ago. But it was that kind of the perfect and poetic way to come to the end of that ride, was to watch it with the two of them And I thought it was such a powerful story, and I liked the ending. A lot of people had mixed reviews on the ending. I thought they had so much to tie up. I was very impressed with how well they tied it up.
No, but that is fantastic though. That is truly amazing. And especially with what you were talking about, like how you went back and watched the entire finale when you had not even watched you had never looked at the entire finale yourself, having like just recorded your scenes in particular for when your character was going to show up with the big action scenes and stuff. Has there ever been moments when you've watched back at like any of the anime that you've done, like from a fan's perspective, like watched it and just not looked at it from an acting perspective, but watching it from a fan's perspective, or have you tried to avoid that
Oh, absolutely.
entirely?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and in the old days, back before the instantaneous internet distribution of everything and everything being streaming, in the old days you would go and record an entire season worth and only see your scenes and only see, your lines even necessarily in your scenes, because it was so fast and the turnaround was so quick that you would sometimes have to wait a year for the DVD to come out and to go back in and even see how this all fits together and what it is that was really going on. Like, the director's job will come in completely blind, not knowing the story, and the director will come in and explain just enough that what you need to know for this scene. So it might just be like, okay, you're a general and you're mad at those guys and this person's being insubordinate. Go. And that's all you know. So it was sometimes a year later you'd see it and go, oh, that's who we were fighting against. Okay, now I see why he was so upset. And then, yeah, there's great shows. It's always a little bit hard for me the first pass through to truly immerse in the story, because I recognize all of the voices when I watch a dub. I I hear Ian Sinclair and think, oh, that's Ian Sinclair. He's doing great work on that, instead of listening to what the character is doing in that moment. So it usually takes me a second watch to be able to go through and fully appreciate a story just as a fan. But yeah, there's shows like Psychopaths that is a small show that not a lot of people saw, but I really liked it and would be a huge fan of that series even if I was not in it. It just is the right amount of sci-fi and cool and a little bit violent and a little bit dangerous. So yeah, there are definitely times where I just fan out, not as a participant, but just as someone that likes good storytelling.
No, that's absolutely fantastic though, and especially from a fan's perspective, or from getting to interact with fans at Comic Cons who have known you for like your work, whether it was in Dragon Ball, in Attack on Titan, and all that sort of stuff. What are some of the big like roles, like deep cut roles that fans have recognized you from that you did not expect, that were outside of like your mainstream roles, so to speak? They were like, wow, that's a bit of a deep cut. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. One of the things that surprises me a lot right now is that one of the great early kind of OG anime shows that I got to be in was Soul Eater, which is a great show, but was really a long time ago. I mean, I don't even know exactly when it came out. I'm thinking it's in the early 2000s that we started work on Soul Eater, and so having that be an experience where people have new fans and uh, finding it now and just coming up to it and they'll say, "Oh, I really can. Do you have a Mifune print? I want to get something for Soul Eater." And they're 12 years old, and I'm like, "You weren't born when we made Soul Eater. How do you know what that is?" But there's these, everything kind of has its own life after the fact, and you never know how people are going to find it. Soul Eater is the same artist and the same universe as Fire Force. So because Fire Force became such a phenomenon and so many fans of that, a whole bunch of people now have gone back and said, oh, I want to see the rest of the canon. I want to see Soul Eater. And so people go back and discover it. So, and the same way with Yu Yu Hakusho is having a real resurgence, in part because they did a live action show and there's a card game out, but also because Hunter x Hunter is the same artist and it's the same universe. So fans that discover that while it's new and hip then go back and discover old shows. So those are always super exciting. Somebody will come up and ask me about Date Masamune, the one-eyed dragon of Oshu from Sengoku Basra, which I thought was a really fun show, but a lot of people missed. There's so many anime out there. And again, I've been in something around in the neighborhood of 350 to 400 titles. I don't know what the exact number is now. So there's a lot of times that I don't even remember that show and have to go look it up when they come to the table and go, oh yeah, I do remember doing that. I love that guy.
But no, that's wonderful though. That's absolutely fantastic though, and especially because it comes from that place of like a lot of actors that have felt sometimes a little bit frustrated for getting recognized for certain roles in particular. Like as we were talking about, you mentioned about Star Wars in particular. Like the most famous example is Alec Guinness, who most people remember as Obi-Wan Kenobi from the original trilogy, where he was such an accomplished actor before he did Star Wars that he would constantly get frustrated. Excuse me, constantly get frustrated with having been recognized as Obi-Wan Kenobi for so many years, even after the original trilogy was done. But on the other end of that equation, you have actors like Christian Bale, who most people remember from the Dark Knight trilogy, where he said that if he was to only get remembered for playing Batman, he would totally be okay with that. Has that ever been the case with you, where you felt like you were frustrated at one stage for getting recognized for just certain roles?
Well, I would say we anime dub voice actors are on a very different level of the fame scale as those movie actors. So I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we feel incredibly lucky that we have any amount of celebrity at all, because this was always such a small niche thing that we never knew was going to blow up into this huge thing. I mean, no one made their living as an anime voice actor. It was one of many side jobs that you had. You also did commercials and voiceovers and maybe taught, or some people did real estate or had many jobs, and this was one of the side hustles that you could have, because there was no way to make a living as an anime voice actor. And none of us expected that the rise of the anime convention and the hunt for the signature of an anime voice actor on a certain item was going to drive the way it had. So none of us had an expectation that we were going to get, or in any way deserved, fame and recognition from doing this. So in that way, I don't know that I was ever frustrated by any fandom. There were times when you work with a director on a certain project for many years, and they start to think of you as that character or only as that type of character. It's kind of the other directors or the directors you've worked with before that you have to lobby and say, hey, I have vocal range. I can do other things. Like in the beginning, I played a lot of young heroes at the same time I was playing young Goten. It's like, up here, guys, like, we can do it. Come on, this is going to be great. Like young, earnest, teenage voices. And so I had to lobby the directors for a long time to let me play a villain, because of this, where I'm speaking right now is about my normal register. And I'm like, oh, I can do gravelly bad guys. And they're like, no, but you do good guys. And forever I was only good guys until I lobbied the director, Justin Cook, who was doing Yu Yu Hakusho, was the first villain I ever got to do, and really lobbied hard to get to even audition for the villain. And then after that, did nothing but villains for about 10 years, and or at least not villains, but gruff, gravelly detectives that were all down here. And I had to go back in and re-audition for directors to say, hey, don't forget, I can also do other things. So you can get pigeonholed by the casting opportunities you get. But in terms of fan reaction, I've never had a problem. That was the with anyone that wanted to come say hi for whatever it might be. It was interesting about Anthony Daniels. I actually asked him about that C-3PO, because he's known for that one thing, and that will always be the thing he is most known for, as C-3PO. And I asked him if there was ever any time that he resented that, like kind of like your question, like that you were sad that you were pigeonholed into that world. And he kind of said that maybe a little bit for like 5 minutes, and then you just realize, like, wait, no, I'm so lucky that I got to be in something enough that mattered to people enough that they want to talk to me about it, and they're going to continue to talk to me about it 20 years later. That's nothing but fortunate. And I feel like that's how a lot of the kind of big name folks, like Leonard Nimoy for a while was very miffed about being known as Spock, and then finally he was like, no, I now love that I am Spock, and that that many people know that character and love that character. But Maybe that's just an ego's journey that you have to go through. But at the same time, Alec Guinness was a brilliant stage actor. I mean, he's an Olivier level actor, and so I can see why being known just for being in a sci-fi movie, which is what he thought of it as at the time, could have been a little miffy. Um,
But no, that's a great attitude to have right there. That's absolutely fantastic, and especially as you were talking about like how getting cast in for playing particular roles for such a certain period of time before going into playing villains for that, but also having to remind the director, hey, I can do other stuff too, is almost reminded me a little bit of a story about like how Kent Williams, who most people remember from Dragon Ball, from Fruits Basket, has always been known as the guy that was cast for like villains or like really dark heroes because of how iconic his voice is and for his vocal register. But he has gone into play like characters that were outside of what he was known for, which obviously goes into a bit of a casting announcement that was made earlier this year, which I'll actually be interviewing him later this year to talk to him a little bit about that, which is just fantastic.
are we announcing what it was? I know what it was. That's been officially announced, right? We can just say the character that's been
Yes,
cast that yet.
yes. So he's
So
a bit.
he's going to be Dr. Vegapunk, and I am so excited. First of all, Kent Williams is one of the most lovely human beings. I have known him for many, many, many years. He taught kabuki theater to my children. He is actually a master kabuki theater teacher as well as a master puppeteer. In addition to being an amazing voice actor and an amazing dad, so he's one of my favorite people, and the fact that he's getting this huge amount of attention now as Dr. Vegapunk, which by the way he is perfect for. It is perfect casting his voice as Dr. Vegapunk, which if you are not up in the manga canon of One Piece, Dr. Vegapunk has a huge impact on the story, and that's all still yet to come in the current season. So I think the end of the season is when that big moment happens. But it's great, and yeah, he's one of those same people that you work with a director and they think of you one way, and you have to remind them that you can do so many other things. That's also just the beauty of voice work, though. I can
Absolutely.
play an 80-year-old man. I can play a 17-year-old kid. I can play a tall guy or a skinny guy or a fat guy, and I can just continue to get older and uglier and less camera worthy and keep working. So it's wonderful.
But no, that's definitely true in that regard, and especially like how you described it about with Kent Williams. I'm so excited for the casting. I'm really happy with the Dr. Vegapunk casting. He is like one of the best voice actors like working in the industry today, and he honestly deserves that role. And on the other end of that equation, you also have actors like Chuck Huber, who you've worked alongside in the Dragon Ball universe, where I asked him that question about a lot of the roles that he's done, which he's played a lot of psychopathic type of characters, and he said just because of his vocal range and where his vocal register is and stuff. And on the other end of that equation, you have actors like Joshua Seth, who most people remember from the Digimon universe, who, when I interviewed him a number of years ago, back in 2020, which was the year that I first spoke with you, when he spoke about how he said he had made it a point to, when going into doing any voiceover role, he would only use his natural voice for a lot of the roles that he's done. He can do the other stuff very well, but he tried to make it a point just to use his natural voice as much as possible, which I think is quite admirable and quite amazing actually.
I love that approach. I wonder if it limits you if you are doing things that are similar characters. We do feel like pressure, like, oh, I need to make this different, and I need to put a spin on this so it doesn't sound like the same as the other guy. Although I will admit, when I go back and listen to some characters that I thought I was doing like amazing vocal gymnastics to make it not just sound like Rob McCollum, and then I go back and listen to it, and I'm like, no, it still kind of just sounds like me. I think we all think we're maybe doing better at masking that than we probably actually are. So he's probably onto something by just saying like, no, this is what I sound like. This is what I do.
Well, he's been doing it for so long now, and like he's been doing it for such a long time, and like listening back to a lot of the roles that Joshua Seth has done over the years, it's like it's working for him, and so yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. But that's fantastic though. And speaking about, of course, with Yu Yu Hakusho, when the announcement was made and when they did the release of the live action series, the same year as the live action One Piece series, what was your reaction to the live action Yu Yu Hakusho series as well as the One Piece show when it came out, and has that changed your opinion about anime being adapted for live action?
I will admit that I have not watched the live action Yu Yu Hakusho yet. I have been planning to, and this summer especially has been super crazy, scheduling with traveling because I work a lot in the UK a ton, and I should just download the whole thing and watch it on the plane. And I kept saying I was going to do that, and I haven't seen it yet. I have heard mixed reviews on it. Some people that really love it, some people that aren't super into it. I will say that on the One Piece live action, we all kind of were expecting it to be terrible, just because so many of the live action adaptations of animated work in the past have let us down and been bad. And we were all, I can't speak for others, a lot of the people that I spoke to that were involved in that show as voice actors were very impressed by the One Piece live action. And it is part of the reason why that has seen such a revitalization for that brand. It's 25 years old, and I feel like it's at its peak of popularity right now. And I think that's largely due to the card game that's been very successful and gotten people interested and re-interested in the original source material. And then that the live action was so good, and it brought people that didn't know anything about anime into it. I saw Whoopi Goldberg came out on The View in the United States in Luffy costume. And I'm like, what is this world that this is this anime is so mainstream? But it was clearly done by fans that cared about the material and wanted the heart and soul of the material to come through, even though it was a very different medium. And also realizing, like, this is a global product. It will make a lot of money if you do it well, and therefore spend a lot of money and do it well. And they did. It doesn't feel like a cut rate. It feels like a fully realized, and all the digital effects that are required are just really deftly done. And I was just super impressed. So I hope that Yu Yu Hakusho as a series is popular, just because I feel like that drives interest in the brand all the way across the board, and will make some people go back and watch the original, which I think is one of the great kind of foundational animations in the anime world. So I'm anything that helps is good. Have you seen it? Have you seen the live action Yu Yu?
I've seen clips of it and stuff, and I was really, from the trailer in particular, and I was really impressed with what they did in terms of what they did from the live action perspective, from the anime perspective. And I've seen the first season of One Piece, the live action series, myself, and I'm really excited for season 2, and especially when they go into season 3 as well. And I have to say, and I remember getting asked this question by John Swayze earlier this year when I had him on the channel the second time round, when he asked me about that, I said, comparing the live action to the anime, it's like comparing apples and oranges. They're two vastly different things. Obviously, in the animation side of things, it can get ridiculous, it can get over the top, and still absolutely amazing. And in the live action stuff, they obviously would have to pull it back a little bit, but I was tremendously impressed with what they did with that. I was like, this is what it's meant to be. This is exactly what it's meant to be right here. And it was fantastic. So yeah, I
also know they did the Borderlands 2 movie just came out and is being or the Borderlands rather movie just came out and is being universally panned. I have not seen it yet, but I was one of the voices in Borderlands video game series, so I was hoping that was going to be a big success, and evidently it was a real swing and a miss.
That is
which
true.
is unfortunate, but I think it's fan. It's like, is the person creating this a true fan of the work, or is it someone who's been hired to do this thing that they're coming in from the outside and don't really have care and respect for? And I think that's on One Piece, definitely. You can tell, like, the writers, the producers, the directors, they care. They're a fan, and they want to do service to it and justice to it, as opposed to just milk it for its fame.
Absolutely, and especially helps in the fact that Oda is still involved in writing the manga, and he's been involved in every step of the way with the live action production. And I think it was the people behind the live action series that have said that Oda has to get a say in what's going on with the casting and all that kind of stuff. If he's not happy with it, he's not gonna let them do it. But so far, based on the success of season 1, he's impressed.
I mean, he should be. I think it's really cool.
Absolutely.
I think it's fun. People have said, like, oh, do you think you're going to get to audition for Doflamingo? Because I do on-camera work as well. And they're like, do you think you're going to get to audition for Doflamingo when it came around? And I'm like, well, he's 7 foot tall and has abs on top of abs on top of abs. So I don't think the something aged person like myself is really going to get a shot at that. I'm very flattered, but I don't think it's going to happen. Well, if they're willing to CGI those abs in, I will do it in a heartbeat.
Well, they did reveal that Chopper was going to be a CGI character for Season 2 because of the big reveal they did earlier this year, as well as all the big casting announcements they made for Season 2, which actually goes into my question, not just to you, Robert, but to the listeners out there. Let me know in the comments below, what do you want to see them do with Doflamingo when they get to doing that character, whether it's going to happen beyond Season 3, which we all know that they're going to go past Season 3, and leave a like or a comment if you really want to see Robert McCollum or any of the voice actors make a Stan Lee cameo in the live-action series, whether Season 2 or Season 3. That would be so fantastic.
We all had a secret hope that they would, at least for the Straw Hats, like the original cast voice actors, that they would get at least a cameo. Like maybe they just are sitting at a table in the background somewhere, but walk past. But I think it would be so cool to see, you know, Colleen Clinkenbeard and Ian Sinclair as Brooke and you know, all the original Straw Hats just in there as themselves, or not even as themselves, but just as a background, as a neat little Easter egg. I think that would be so cool. I had thought of an actor who I thought would be a great Doflamingo, and now I cannot remember his name. There's a new movie out that he's in. If I think of his name before the end of this interview, I will tell you.
But no, that would be fantastic though. And hey, they're still making the casting announcements for a lot of the other characters for Season 2, especially since we haven't gotten the reveal on who Chopper is yet, which I have a very strong feeling they're going to leave that to the last minute because it's going to be a really big surprise, especially to longtime fans such as myself. So I'm excited for what they're going to do in Season 2, and knowing how big fans a lot of the cast, a lot of the people involved in the live-action series are, I would not be surprised if they got you or any of the actors to make a cameo in the series. It seems, because of how successful that first season was and how far they went, I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, I remember the movie that he is in. I got to look up this guy's name because I think Kevin Durand. Kevin Durand is like an action movie guy. He's big. He's played a lot of Marines. He was in X-Men Origins and Resident Evil. He I could see as a potential Doflamingo. If you look up, his name is Kevin Durand with a D. Where's he from? He's a Canadian actor.
Wow. I definitely have to check up on that. But, you know, that I can definitely see that. I mean, there's, especially when it comes to like a lot of the casting for such really big characters, because I know earlier this year there was a lot of reports going about that Jamie Lee Curtis was going to play Dr. Kureha in the series, and she'd been advocating to play in One Piece because of her being such a huge fan of the series and good friends with Brina Palencia, who plays Chopper in the anime.
Yeah.
And when, unfortunately, that fell through because of the scheduling conflicts that she was involved in at the time. But the showrunner did say that, yeah, we're definitely going to get the right role for her when she's free to do that. And to seeing the casting for Katie Seagal as Dr. Kureha, that was like, wow, I didn't expect that, but that is really good casting right there. And even Joe Manganiello as Mr. Zero as well. I was like, wow, did not see that coming.
Yeah, the fact that they're getting these A-listers, because a lot of the people in Season 1 you'd never heard of, they're all brilliant actors. I actually got to meet the guy that plays, oh God, what's his name? I'm blanking. The sea captain who owns the restaurant with one leg. Anyway, Craig, the actor who plays him in the live action, had no clue about any anime at all before he was brought into that world, and then was coming to an anime convention, even though he was on the live action, and he was just fascinated. So I felt like we were on a panel together, and I was kind of his Sherpa guide, because like, this is what anime is. It's different from any fandom that you have ever dealt with in all the movies that he'd done, and he'd done hundreds of movies. but films, and we're like, yeah, this is a different level of dedication and interest and connection. It'll be unlike anything you've ever experienced. And he was fascinated and loved it.
Absolutely. And yeah, the fact alone that they're casting in such really big A-list actors, but also a lot of actors that not many fans would have recognized in that part is a huge testament to them. Is them saying we're not just we're getting like these really big A-list actors because one, they passed the audition and they're such great actors, and yeah, they fit the character, but also giving that chance to a lot of unknown actors as well. And I honestly feel like that's what it needs to be as well for a lot of big live action productions. It's like saying we're not just going to put in like the big A-list actors for their names alone. Let's give that chance to a lot of the unknown actors as well. Let's give them that chance that they need as well. And I feel like that's what every production in Hollywood needs to establish, is giving that chance to everybody, as well as respecting the material that they're working with as well.
Yeah, you want to see some new faces get a chance at things, but at the same time, those existing well-known people bring a lot of attention to it. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah,
oh, that's going to bring eyebrows. That having Joe Manganiello in as Mr. O, that's going to bring a whole new group of people to it. And so it's kind of great. But I love that there are some unknowns that are getting a chance, but that they're also bringing some people. I think
absolutely.
Ava as Miss Ali Sunday is also going to be great. I think there's a lot of really good. I'm excited about this season.
Absolutely. It's going to be fantastic. Now of course, going a little further into the animation side of things. Now, early this year we ended up having a strike with the animation and the video game industries, which was not just about the whole topic of AI, but on a whole range of topics that we've all known about for the last couple of years, whether it's been working conditions or just like pay rates, any of that sort of stuff. Having been involved having been involved in the voice acting world in both video game to animated animation side of things, what has been your view about like a lot of animation in, especially when it comes to really big film companies, like in the famous case of like what Warner Brothers has done with their animation department, or especially when it comes to animation in big awards ceremonies?
Well, in terms of the strike and whether that was what exactly do you mean in terms of
Ah, so earlier this year, I'm not
we
sure if
had the
it's
strike, yeah.
yes, that's right. So how do you personally feel about the state of like animation, especially when it comes to like really big production companies, not necessarily the small ones, but like the really big ones, whether it's been Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal Studios, especially when it comes to the way that animation has been treated in like those in such big companies.
Yeah, I feel like it's really been undervalued in terms of that they see that there is a huge appetite for it and there's a market for it, and they think instantly, oh, that's easy. That's easy to replicate. We'll throw a little money at it, we'll put some people on it, they'll draw the thing, and it'll be done. And realizing that there is a big difference between something that is great and something that is just okay, and that is love and passion, and then you have to find people who are passionate about it and love it and are not just doing it to turn a quick buck. And I think some of the big releases from, especially in the US, trying to get into the animation game, some things that I felt like were a huge miss, and I'm like, oh yeah, because you didn't care, you didn't pay attention, you didn't build story enough, you thought, oh, I'll just throw some cool looking artwork, and a lot of it looks cool, but cool looking artwork and action sequences does not make you care about characters, and not caring about the characters means you're not going to follow a show past one or two episodes. And I think they're realizing like, oh, this is not as easy as we thought it was. We have to actually find people who care about it and then pay them what they're worth to do this, because it's not just an assembly line where you crank out so many frames of animation and automatically make money from it. There is an art to the storytelling, there's an art to the acting, and there's an art towards the art that is not just a commodity replicatable thing. And I think they are learning that in the profits they got. But I hope that the lesson is like, oh no, we shouldn't do this because it's not profitable. The lesson that I hope they take away is, oh no, we shouldn't do this badly because doing it badly is not profitable. Doing it
Absolutely.
well would still be really profitable. And I hope that is the message that is taken away from it. The fact that they've been underpaying people for such a long time, and it didn't really affect the anime world, but in terms of video games and other first-run animation, it is, our livelihoods are under threat from AI duplication and some of the other things. So there's a limited amount of time, I think. And so, yes, I think you should pay those people what they are worth, because in a few years you may not be paying those people at all. And while I can say I hate that and I think it's terrible, I think in some places it may be unavoidable. In the dub world, I think it's possibly unavoidable, because AI is going to get to the point where they can listen to the intensity and tone of a Japanese performance and replace it with an English voice that matches that intensity and tone. And if that happens, they may not be willing to pay me to come and do a re-envisioned version of that. And we all like to say that we are reimagining and we are adding nuance to the performance, and we are doing things that work for an American audience that wouldn't have come from the Japanese performance, because it's a different cultural landscape. But I do think there's a potential future where you're not having live dub actors doing the English versions of things. And so we may be the last generation of people that are going out to anime conventions and meeting our fans, because it will just be a machine, which I think is sad.
Yeah, and of course I've heard that sort of statement before from like a lot of the actors that I've had on the channel, especially when AI started to get a lot more attention in the last couple of years. Even though it's existed for a really long time, has only begun to get a lot more attention in the last couple of years. And I will say straight off the bat, I don't have the answer to that question myself, because I'm just as like unsure about it as everyone else is. What I will say though is I've been doing this channel for the last now close to about 10 years now, and people
Wow, I didn't realize it had been that long, Simon. Congratulations, that's amazing.
I know. I was looking back on a lot of the interviews that I've done, especially when I did my panel like at Oz Comic Con early this year, and I was going to myself where I was like, wow, I can't believe this. And people would ask me, and I will say this to the day I die, people would ask me, if people were to come to me and ask me, why do you still go to comic conventions? Why do you still do what you do on this channel for so long? I say, one, I go to the comic conventions primarily to meet the voice actors, and two, I do this to express that part of myself that is outside of being a musician and music teacher, and two, most importantly, to show my support to the animation and the voice acting industry, and to bring more attention to it as well. That's why I do what I do here.
Well, for those of us that are on the receiving end of it, we appreciate it and thank you. It is my ultimate goal to someday get to come to Australia to a con. That's a big bucket list item. I have not yet done. I didn't do cons for a lot of years, just because I was busy with other work that was having me back and forth to the UK a lot, because I do corporate training videos. You talked about your other jobs and other passions with the music. My other world is IT security corporate training videos that I write, the world's first action adventure series about IT security called The Inside Man. If anyone works for a company that is subscribed to KnowBe4 and has seen the inside man at work, that you get forced to work for your IT security training, that is what I do. But just started to be able to start doing conventions again and really get out and see people and realize how, hungry they are to meet and talk to us about those performances. And also to get, people driving 8 hours to get to the con because I was the last signature they needed on a full cast poster or something like that. And I hadn't done cons in years. So it's been really fun to get back out and start doing cons. So
Absolutely.
As a person for whom you are a megaphone for and a cheerleader for our industry, thank you for doing the work and also interviewing all the folks you've interviewed over the years and bringing more notice to their efforts.
And I will continue to do so for maybe a lot longer than 10 years, so without a doubt. But yeah, it's what I do, And I will say straight off the bat that I've been doing everything in my power to get you, not just you, but all the other guests that I've had that are still working to this day forward, to come down to the comic conventions here in Australia, whether it's been Supernova, Oz Comic Con, and also MetroCon, which they've just started just last year. So I've been doing everything in my power to get you guys to come down to this. Just I put together an entire list and just put it onto the form and say, these are the guys that I want to come down. I want down here in Australia. Make it happen.
Well, if any of them are listening right now, I'm interested. Come find me.
Absolutely.
Let's talk.
Absolutely. Now, speaking about a little further on One Piece, now this year, of course, marking the 25th anniversary of the franchise, but also they made the announcement on the remake series, on the new remake series that they're working on in celebration of the 25th anniversary called The One Piece. What was your reaction to hearing about that, especially knowing that the original series is still going on to this day forward?
I mean, I think it's fascinating that there's a new version coming out while the old version is still being made. But again, I am excited. I don't automatically poo-poo that or disdain that, because if they're true to the work in the way that the live action was, and if Oda himself is involved, at the level, he doesn't have time to do it. He's doing the main series still, but if he is at least involved in that kind of way that George R.R. Martin is involved in Game of Thrones, even though they're doing prequels and things that aren't in his writing, he's still involved and is a taste maker and a kind of an arbiter on the quality. I'm excited about it. I think it could be really cool. Also, that part of the reason I think people were afraid of One Piece was because it was too long. It's too many. I don't have time for 900 episodes. Of course, the pandemic gave people a lot of time. There was actually a big boost in One Piece during the pandemic, because people were like, "Oh, I do have time to watch 700 episodes." But yeah. So if this new is a more streamlined version and is a way into the story, I think it's a really great story. I kind of love these characters, and so anything that draws new people to this kind of great storytelling, I'm in favor of. I just hope it's done as well as the other things have been done.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely a great attitude to have, especially because of the way that, like, excuse me, the the way that Oda has been talking about it has made it sound like that, yes, they're going to stream, and even the people that are involved in the remake have said that they're going to streamline past a lot of the stuff that did not exist in the manga. But also Oda said to them in a way that don't try to copy what the original had done. Do your own twist on it, but at the same time, pay respect to how the original, like, pay homage and keep it, and pay respect to how, in the spirit of the original, in the original version. So I think it's in really good hands at this stage.
I feel like I heard the same thing, that he was like, okay, I want you to honor the original manga. You don't have to stick with the animation. You're doing a new animation. You're allowed to do your own look and feel and vibe, because it's coming off the same source code. It's like two different versions of a Shakespeare play. As long as they're both Shakespeare, you can do really different things on that stage. But so I think that was great that he said, I don't want you to make a lesser, quicker copy of the old animation. Do something new from scratch based on the manga. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Now,
I'm also excited about the end of the series. I think Doflamingo is one of my favorite characters that I've ever gotten to play, and definitely my favorite villain that I've ever gotten to play, and I think he's going to have a big role in whatever is to come. So I'm super excited to see what Oda does.
Absolutely, especially because of the way that Oda has been talking about this being the final saga for the manga at this stage, which now says, yep, we're getting close to the end now. So, especially because a lot of the comments that people have been talking about, with one character in particular, which was Shanks, and saying, the minute you start to see Shanks appearing more than once at this stage of the story, that says that, yeah, we're getting close to the end here. That's what's going on. So
absolutely,
everyone.
Shanks is also one of my favorite characters. So anytime there's more Shanks, I love the character, and I also love the English dub actor, which is Brandon Potter, who voices Shanks. So anytime there's more Shanks, I'm here for it.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. Now, a couple of the other roles that you've also starred in fairly recently, or returned to, was Fairy Tail and Black Clover. But as we were talking a little bit about with Spy X Family, you also starred in an anime that happened at the same time the Spy X Family was really blowing up, which was Buddy Daddies.
Yes, Buddy Daddies was a small role, but a fun role. Kind of the terrible father figure in that, and so that was exciting. But I do love Jalal and Fairy Tale has a special place in my heart, and it's exciting to get to go back and do that now that the 100-Year Saga has begun, and I'm back recording. I hadn't realized it had been like 7 years since I had voiced any Jalal. I was like, oh, I missed him. I forgot I missed him. I also forgotten how much fan service there is in that show. I'm like, oh, everybody's just really scantily clad. I forgot that. I blocked that out. But everybody's really scantily clad in the show. And in the new season, especially, there's one fun episode that people will realize. There's a lot of fan service in that. I won't spoil anything. But then Julius from Black Clover is one of my favorite characters because he's probably the closest to actually me. People ask on panels and at conventions sometimes, like, what of your characters is closest to you and your actual personality? And luckily the answer is not Doflamingo, who just loves to kill people. The answer is Julius, because the director had said, the director Chris George, who's known me for years, is like, I know you do these gravelly tough guys all the time, but I've heard you at anime conventions when you nerd out over someone's costume and you're like, oh my god, look at that sword, that's so cool, check this out. Like, that nerd Rob is the core of Julius that I want for this performance. And so getting to do that, and yeah, he's a tough guy when he needs to be, but Julius is one of my near and dear to my heart. And I am anxiously awaiting to see if they continue the animation. Supposedly it's happening in Japan. We don't know anything yet about it, but I know, again, I try not to read ahead, but I do know a bit about what's happening in the manga right now, and I'm very anxious to get to record that. So hopefully that will be coming soon, but I don't have any insider information on when or if that's going to be.
But no, that's absolutely fantastic though. That's really wonderful. And final question, what do you think Goten would say if he was in Australia?
What would Goten say? I just want to go on a date. Do Australian girls like nerdy guys? Because I still just want to go on a date. I mean, he launched an entire spaceship because he just wanted to talk to a girl. I mean, I get it. He's still, I think, in that same kind of, even though he's older now, I think he's still in that prepubescent fixation of just like, I just want to talk to a girl.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Australian women are beautiful, so I'm sure he's going to be right at home there.
But no, definitely without a doubt. I'd like to see them like do a representation of like Australia in like an anime at some stage, or like in the Dragon Ball universe. That would be pretty cool to see that, actually.
Has there been no anime or manga that are Australia adjacent? There has to be.
There has to be. I think I've yet to find that, but I'll definitely have to check up on that at some stage, because that'd be pretty amazing to see that, especially because I know in the fact that like Australia has started to get a lot more attention now from overseas, with a lot of productions coming to Australia in particular, and even a lot of Australian actors getting involved in international productions as well. So to see Australia getting the recognition that it deserves in that sense, I think is really amazing in that. I think it's just absolutely fantastic. So yeah.
A Place Further Than the Universe. There is an anime that I've never heard of called A Place Further Than the Universe. And that is evidently set in Australia. I'm looking for now Reddit feeds about Australia-based.
I think I may have that one on my watch list.
Savage Boo has one. Okay, well, Pacific Rim, yeah, but that's different. Made in Abyss is an anime, evidently, that was set in Australia.
Wow, I did not
Australian
expect
Kevin
it.
Penkin. Australian Kevin Penkin composed the music, and also evidently one of the free movies. In one of the free movies, Rin moves to Australia. So there you go.
There
There's
you go.
representation. Do you feel seen? Do you feel seen now, Simon?
Yeah, no, that's incredible though, and proves my point. Australia now starting to get the recognition that it deserves.
It's
So
hip. It's hip, man. It should be. It's where it's all
exactly,
happening. Australia.
exactly right there. That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Robert McCollum, thank you so much. It has been an absolute honor to have you back.
So great to be back with you. Thanks again for your 10 years of diligent service and spreading the word, my friend.
And a lot more to come, past 10 years, of course. But no, it's been an absolute honor. And is there anything you'd like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
Well, the same thing that I say as my sign off a lot of times. If anyone watched any of the old Funimation videos when they first came out, when they were on DVD or streaming, there was the logo that had all of the whispers as the Funimation logo formed out. It was the beginning of all of the episodes. And the whisper was, "You should be watching." And that was my voice. So I always say that. Thank you for watching. Keep watching. You should be watching.
And we'll definitely do that without question. But that is amazing. That's fantastic. But no, that's absolutely amazing though. And for anyone out there listening, if you'd like to know more about Robert McCollum, you can catch him on Attack on Titan, the final chapter, on Dragon Ball, on Fairy Tail, on Black Clover, any of his other programs he's got coming up later this year. And don't forget to like and subscribe when this interview is officially up on the channel later today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the links, and don't forget to comment below what is your favorite Robert McCollum role of all time. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Robert McCollum signing off. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, guys.